We're here with Gerolf Annemans. After more than 2 weeks after the terrorist attack here in Brussels, how do you think the country and the city itself are responding to these difficult times?
Well, we see something that comes after attacks like this over every city that is the victim of that. There is first some sadness, and then something like passiveness. The people don't believe what happened, but the politicians say that everything is all right. It's always the same. The things are not all right. Belgium called this over itself because Islamization of Brussels and the neighborhoods of Brussels was the nucleus of what happened eventually. And we predicted this, and we always said that wild immigration that Mr. Verhofstadt, as a prime minister in Belgium, organized would lead to the way that radicalization made Brussels as a center fold of possible terrorist attacks. So what we said in Belgium and in Belgian Parliament for many, many years, we repeat this now in the European Parliament. Belgium called this upon himself.
You talk about the Belgian government. How do you think it reacts in the aftermath? I'm not talking about the cause, you made that clear, but in the immediate aftermath.
Well, there was crisis management. And now, just recently, there was a press conference to look for the third man who committed the attacks on Zaventem. So we have the feeling that investigation is progressing towards the guys that committed these crimes. But that doesn't solve the cause of the problem. The politicians try to manage the crisis, but they don't solve the problem.
You are from Antwerp and you are from Flanders in broader terms. What do you think this problem that that lead to this Brussels attack are because of the specificality of Brussels as the Brussels government that is very complicated, or it can apply also in other parts of the country, like in Flanders or in Wallonia specifically?
Well, I'm not saying that Flanders is immune for such attacks, of course not. But what we see is that Brussels and the institutional position of Brussels in Belgium is not a good guarantee. As a matter of fact, here was a concurrence between French-speaking liberals and French-speaking socialists who wanted power in this very important town. And gaining this power from the socialists was accompanied by liberal Mr. Verhofstadt's party cooperated enlargement of the possibilities to become a Belgian. So many immigrants got voting rights without any condition. On the contrary, in the meantime, we promoted and we gave liberties to Salafism and the Saudi Arabian-inspired and financed groups here in Brussels. So there was a deadly cocktail made that made possible not only the Brussels attacks, but also the Paris attacks. Let's not forget that. The Paris attacks were conducted from Brussels.
One last question about Europe. Do you think Europe can help for having a more effective counter-terrorism measure, or do you think that's not going to happen anytime soon?
I think that the European Union and the federal approach is not the right one. What we need, especially in security policy, is the swift, consequent and right through policy of a member state and of a well-equipped state and a well-functioning state, and not this too global approach of a federal Europe that is actually a failure. We see that in the immigration policy, in the border defense, external border defense of the European Union, the euro and other important dossiers. We see that European Union and the federalist approach is not the right one, and especially not in this case.